I'll restore this, or I'm recording on the computer first, and then I'll start the live stream,
Okay.
which takes a minute to kind of set up. But
I wanted to apologize for last time. I honestly thought it was 8 o'clock. I signed on and then I had a good cry. I was like, oh my gosh, like Toku's gonna think it wasn't any, I had planned, I had it ready in my head, I was so excited. And I was like, guys, I had the family organized. Guys, it was 6 o'clock.
oh no,
It
I
about
didn't.
quarter.
I know you. I know that you're reliable. I wasn't particularly worried
Yeah.
about.
I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I said, and he was like, you were so excited for that. I really was.
Yeah.
But I apologize that,
No,
because I
it's
know you set
okay.
out time, but I
Yeah,
didn't do it
yeah.
on
Thanks for
purpose.
apologizing. I appreciate it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't holding anything on you around it. So.
Yeah. Oh, nervous.
Okay. Here we go. Going live. Switch the gallery view. Okay, so it's now loading. Probably it's already broadcasting. There's always it's always the first minute or two where it's just me talking about are we live on Facebook or not right now. So that's always what my first, it's like, that's the intro to my lives always is like, are we live yet on Facebook? Okay, we're live. All right. And I will tag you in this post as well. So, okay. So welcome everybody to another episode of Coaching Dojo Live, this thing that I'm doing kind of once a week to talk about and just kind of show what it's like to be in a coaching session with a coach and talk a little bit about the art of coaching. And today I have the incredible Nazma Khatun. Nazma is a graduate of the Dojo. She lives in the UK and she does couples counseling and has a real passion for helping people live and have very successful marriages. For me, Nazma is courage. She is brilliance, and she is heart. And over the time that we had in the dojo, I just got to see so many incredible ways that she brought herself forward as coach and as human being. And it was an incredible honor to get to work with her. And I know that she's already having an incredible impact in the world. So, Nazma, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're just going to dive right in. I know we talked a little bit before the call to, talk about some of the ideas that you had, and I'm kind of curious, how are you doing today, and what are you bringing to coaching?
I'm doing well. Got ready for this. I know we had it organized previously, and so it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that again. I kept checking the time, but yeah, I really thought about what should I spend this hour with, because I know that I've sat with you previously, and even to this day, I can remember some of the insights that I got. And to this day, I can still remember them and still use them and think, whoa, I remember that one. And I slow down and I think, yeah, I have to still look at that. So I'm excited, yeah.
What are some of the insights that have stuck with you?
So I remember on the dojo, when we did the work, I just didn't see myself. I saw everybody else as great. And I was just this person behind everything. Like I didn't look at myself that way. And when I was part of the dojo and being around other brilliant coaches, you just even then when you were saying about courage and bravery, I thought, gosh, it's nice to sit with somebody who tells me those things, and I don't often see that. And I remember the one you told me about money, that why does everybody else have my money? And I thought that was brilliant. And actually I went and bought something for myself today, and even to this day I still practice that I give my money to other people. I'm very generous with it, but never for myself. And that was a big piece of work for me, both in investing in coaching and out, in my general life as well. So I remember that one. There's so many. I still have like the scripts.
Yeah, you don't have to go through all of it. Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, that one about the money definitely is a big one.
Cool. So what are you bringing today?
Okay, so I want to talk about something that we touched on just before we came on. I've been trying to write this book for a long time, and I have this idea in my head that the reason that I don't do it is because I'm not organized enough or dedicated or motivated enough. Um, but I don't know. So I want to kind of explore.
What's the book about?
Mm, it's about marriage. It's about for Muslims particularly. Um, and for a long time, I didn't even. I've been wanting to go into the relationship spectrum, and I didn't because I thought I was divorced. And somebody had made a comment once and said, "Oh well, why should I take advice off you since you're divorced?" And I was really naive back then, and I thought, right, well, she must be right then. Surely I can't be any good at relationships if I'm divorced. But as I got maturer, I learned that, and I know that that's not true. Divorce is not neither good or bad. It is a part of relationships. It happens. And so I managed to get into the work, and I love it. I really do love the work. But I wanted to do a book because I thought there's a lot of stuff that I would like to share just on my personal experiences. And for Muslims particularly, there's stuff around the religious side of things, and then there's stuff around psychology, but there isn't a lot that builds the two together, you know, the formulas and things that we can practically do in our marriages to help. And I'm not, you know, discrediting the imams and all the great work that the mosques do. They do amazing work, but there's a lot of things that could be done better, you know, through what we've learned through psychology. So that's why I wanted to bridge the two. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're pretty clear what for. It's well, I mean, I guess what is your what for? So you want to write the book because you want to help people save their marriages, or what is your what
Yeah.
for?
So the main thing is to just have something that some of the literature I read that I learned from really gave me not a very good um, map of relationships. There were things, even yesterday I was reading something, an old book, and it was written around how they gave this idea of this woman waking up and how she should have the children ready and everything done. And if she doesn't, then it was the wife's fault. And the husband goes to work, you know, upset, and he comes back upset. And the reason for the relationship not working is because of the woman not waking up early. And I just want to change some of that narrative, that we've moved on from that. And that comes from a lot of culture as well, and not necessarily Islam. And so there's a lot of books out there, and I learned from those types of books, and I adapted those into my relationship. And I look back and I think, gosh, I was almost codependent because, and I'm not saying because of those, there's things that were in my history as well. So I'd like to create something that is suited for, you know, the world that we live in today, you know, where people are more equal, or more, you know, both partners are working, and bring in Islam into that, not to leave it behind in any way. So that's kind of, you know, the purpose of it, really. Some practical tips on how to do that.
So that sounds pretty clear. So then what gets in the way when you go to write the book?
Life, the kids, sleep. I have bipolar, and so I have very sporadic sleep. I can go well for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden my mood will shift. I'm not blaming the bipolar, but I'm just saying that at the moment where I'm at,
it's like
that's
something
what
that's
I
in the space
see.
for you.
That's something that, and I think the other things are, it'll be rubbish. What's the point? And then I go from really small things to like big world things, which is, how am I even going to sell it? Like, you know, but I don't believe that. Like, I think once you have to get it done first before you think about who's going to take it or how that's going to happen. So I do know it on a logical level, but then I kind of I don't know if it's self-sabotage, but I tell myself, gosh, it's going to be rubbish, even though, you know, people who read my writing really enjoy it, you know, and they're like, wow, that's really, I love that. And but there is this part of me that's like, nah, it won't make a big enough impact. And so I think, well, then what's the point? You know, I just carry on doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
Would you write the book if only 10 people read it?
Yeah, I think I would. And that's the thing, that's what I kind of go through. So I go from the the perspective of how I do my work, which is one person at a time comes in front of me, and stand with that one person and I do the work.
Mm.
But then when it comes to the book, I'm like, one person reads it, you don't know the impact of that one person and their family and their members and all the other people that's going to
Mm.
help. And then I think, well, that's not good enough, So I'm going through both. Does that
It's a
make
lot of,
sense?
yeah, it's a lot. It feels like a lot of thinking
Yes.
and not a lot of
Yeah.
writing.
Not a lot of writing. Yeah. When I write, yesterday I went out near the water with the girls and they played, and I wrote. I just sat there for half an hour and I got almost like 2 chapters done because it's in me. I've been doing this for so long. It's like I can write. When I'm there, I can write. Like, I can literally pour it out. But I stop myself when it comes to, I have to sit down at a desk, and I didn't sit at a desk. I wrote it on my phone yesterday. Like I was near the water. Where else am I? I didn't have internet access. It
Yeah.
was
So
just
tell me about I had a sense about this. So tell me about the idea that you have about how writing a book should look. Like, what do you imagine it's supposed to look like?
yeah. So it's supposed to have. It's supposed to be laid out. I'm supposed to know what the cover's gonna be like. I'm supposed to know how people are gonna buy it. I'm supposed to know, um, which exact person is reading it and exact impact that it's gonna have on them. Like I know it sounds really, it is silly, but I
I
do
mean, it's
get
not
thought
silly
of
in
them.
here. In here, it sounds very realistic, but all of it kind of keeps you from actually like doing anything,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So you have to figure out. It's got to be laid out. You got to have the cover figured out. You got to figure out how to sell it. You got to figure out who's reading it, and then
Yeah.
specifically, how do you imagine the process looks like? So you said something like, "I'm going to sit down at a desk and write," and kind of describe what
Yeah.
that actually looks like for me.
So I enjoy the writing element, and I don't mind the second or even the third edit. That bit's okay. And then I get put off thinking, oh my gosh, then I'm going to have all these pages of writing and I'm going to have to organize it. And that really puts me off. That stage puts me off. My husband always says, look, you can get an edit, you can get someone to do that bit. I'm like, yeah. And I don't do it. And yeah, he's telling
Why do
me
you have to? Would you have to hire someone to organize it?
because I don't want to do that bit. So once it's done,
But why does it need to be organized? What if it just comes out the way it needs to be?
so that's another thing. I have this idea that there should be, I feel like I'm somebody when I'm in that space. I do this in my work as well. I took this to supervision. When I'm in heart space, it's very clear. But then when I doubt myself, I think, oh, I need to go back to reference Gottman, or I need to go back to reference one of the psychologists. So I need to tell them this is what we're doing. And she said, look, this is like a shadow side of you not believing you're competent when you're very competent. So I go back to thinking there has to be a structure. There has to be something I'm going to reference. Somebody's got to have told me this is how you organize it. Because if you look at it, it's actually not going to be that kind of book. I've written it almost like it's little bits of writing and bits of poetry and bits of,
Hmm.
it's really lovely to just go in and out. That's how, I mean, if you think about me as a reader, I thought of it this way. Like any book that I pick up, I never read it from beginning to end. I just don't read books that way. I just don't like it. I pick books by their cover, which is unrealistic, but I do. I like pretty covers. Sometimes I pick them because they're really boring, and I think, right, that cover's so boring, I'm going to find out. I dip in and out. I go through the content. I think, oh, that's interesting. And I don't think there's a book on my shelf that I've read from beginning to end, except when I've done counseling and I have to read because I have to study for something. I'm going into it that way. Like there's got to be this, like I'm trying to put a content together, and okay, so there's this part that Gottman says, and then there's this layer of relationships, and then there's this layer, and I'm trying to cover it all. But inside, I'm not like that. I don't function that way, and that's why I brought up this organization. I don't function like that in my life either, like with my kids. But I hate myself for not doing it because I think that's the thing that stops me. Like that's the thing that's wrong with me. And if I was just a bit more organized, then I would have these great, outcomes and things to show for my life. But I don't function like that. So it's really bizarre that,
What's bizarre?
that I want to be that way. I see my sister as an example. She's really organized. She'll wake up at 8, she'll get the kids, and they do a lot of things. But I'm so sporadic. Like, I homeschooled the kids and they were unskilled children. We went to the park and explored bugs, and then in the afternoon we decided to go and see a friend if we wanted to, or read a book. That's how I brought up the kids. And that's kind of how I live my life. And then I've got this book to do and it needs to be organized. And I think, gosh,
Why does it need to be organized? I'm
because
not with you on that premise. Why can't it just be a book of poetry?
Because how's somebody going to read it? How do you
read books?
I go in and out, and I go in and out.
I mean, it feels a little like over here, like, okay, so I have a couple of reflections. Are you open to reflection?
Yes.
So the first is that you have a style which I would describe as very feminine, which is not particularly structural, right? Which is sort of like very much feeling the flow of the movement and writing what feels right. But for some reason you judge that style, which is kind of the style of Nazma, like that's sort of who you are. You judge that as lacking something versus like providing something.
Yeah, I do feel like it lacks, and I know it goes deeper. It's almost like it, even as like my sister is like a maths genius. She got a first in her degree, so and I did psychology, and it's like a woo-woo kind of subject. And I did it really unconventional. I didn't get to go to college. I did it through night school, and through having the babies. And it was everything I do is my kids jump on beds. My sister's like mortified. Like, you let them jump on. I'm like, yeah, they jump from bed to bed when they want to get to the other side of the room, and like walk across, and she flies across. And it's like, I'm usually judged because of that. I'm usually judged like, oh, you're not very organized. You've made these choices in your life.
Other people are judging you, or you're judging yourself?
I think that voice comes from my childhood. And I think I still have it, and I don't know how to be the other way in complete, like I don't know how to embrace it and to say that that's how I am, and through that I'm still going to achieve lots of amazing things. But I seem to think that if I don't have the structure, then I'm not going to achieve certain things. Like the kids haven't finished Quran. Most Muslims send their children from the age of 5. Their kids, are finished by 8 or 9, 10. Mine is still learning, because I did weekend classes, and I thought, well, Quran is supposed to be with you your whole life, not till you're about 10. So who said that they have to finish by 10? Like, if she needs longer, then she needs longer. Like, I didn't have that in my mind, and now I'm sat here, like, the whole family, all the kids know how to, but my kids don't. But they're still learning, and it's hard to find, my space when I've got that kind of thinking around me. It's really hard.
How would you counsel a couple if the husband came in and said, my wife is this free spirit and she's very disorganized and she brings a lot of joy into the home, but like, her sister's really organized and her sister's like this expert in math. Her sister's like, her kids have all learned the Quran by 10, and our kids haven't learned that. And I just don't know what to do with her. How would you counsel that couple?
He would have to look within himself and really think about what the challenges are in himself around his wife being that way, because it's not her that's the problem. He has a way of looking at that, and the way that he judges the world. I actually have a couple exactly like this, which is really interesting. She's so free, and he's a doctor, and he wants her to be on time and do things exactly the way it should be done. And she comes at every session and cries. So you can see the very different kind of. And it's just getting him to really. He finds it so difficult to see a world that she could possibly be successful in if she doesn't do things in a conformative way. And it's hard for him because the work is within himself, and he doesn't want to look within himself. He just wants to say, if she just turned up on time, everything would be okay. If she just did this, everything would be okay. But when I look at them, I think neither of them are broken, neither of them are wrong. if they want this relationship to work, he's going to have to be able to see the beauty in it. And to do that, he's going to have to be able to see that his way might not be the only way. Like she's just as successful, and he doesn't see that. Like I won't say what career in case, my clients here, but he's got a very high, successful career, but she's in the same field and she's done it. And, they laugh about it. She says, oh, I never turned up at my classes. He's like, oh, I always turned up at the time it was supposed to be. But she passed just the same as him, but he can't see it. And it just baffles me that, if he could just get into that place of love and let go of that judgment of himself, and he would see so much beauty. And it'd be nice for him as well, because he's not as challenged and he's not as, yeah.
So are you listening to yourself right now as you say all that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I attracted a husband who's like an artist who never sticks to anything. I've learned a lot from him, but it's hard. And it's affecting a lot of things because I always stop. I want to do it my way, and then it can't possibly be that way. I have to have structure. The kids are not going to learn. I'm not going to achieve anything because I didn't sit at my desk for an hour today and write. But it worries me because I can't measure it either. Whereas people who have like timetables and then they can measure. They can measure like, okay, we did an hour and in that hour I got this done. But I don't have that measurement system either. And it's really scary for people around me scary for me. Oh my gosh, I'm letting time just merge itself and I'm not containing it in some way.
So I don't want to suggest that you don't need any structure, but do you see how approaching who you are from a place of judgment and the way I do think is wrong it wouldn't be a solid foundation for a marriage, and it's not a solid foundation for creating a system of organization. It's not a solid foundation for creating a relationship with yourself. So if you start from that place of the way I am is wrong and the way I do everything is wrong and I just need to be different, it's gonna make it very hard. I mean, that doesn't sound inspiring to me. If someone came in and as I was coaching me now, I was saying, well, all your instincts with coaching are wrong. Not like, okay, you have really strong instincts in these areas, but maybe you should try this, right? Instead of just like, nope, you're wrong. You should just only be asking questions, or like your session should have more structure and you really get clear, like someone just yelling at me the whole time. I wouldn't inspire me to want to continue to coach, right?
I do that a lot. Tell myself off a lot. Wake up in the morning, I'm going to do some writing, and think, I'm not sat at a desk, but I write on pieces of paper and I write on, and then I just like screenshot it and send it to myself. It's all there. It's just, I don't know why. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like somebody saw it. They think I was like, honestly. Yeah,
so
I do judge myself a lot.
Yeah. So what if we start with the assumption that the way you do things is fine? And so there's structure and there's structure, right? So it's like, I've had times where I've had a very regimented diet, where my diet was very regimented, and times where my diet's been more flexible. And either of those is fine, so long as I I have a sort of like bodily integrity I like to maintain, which is sort of under a particular weight, right? A certain weight I get to, I'm like, I don't feel good in my body anymore. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, I can be flexible or I can have structure. I need enough structure so that I don't like gain a bunch of weight and don't feel good in my body, right? Same thing with exercise. Like I don't need to, some of it is very regimented exercise or exercise is very regimented. Sometimes it's more flexible. Like right now, mostly I'm like hiking and trail running. It's not very structural. I'm not trying to go lift weights and do a progressive overload. But I feel good in my body. Like I'm able to move and I can walk up a hill and not get winded. Like there's a certain integrity I'm able to maintain. So I need just enough structure to support like what it is I'm declaring to do. But if I start from like, well, the way I do everything is wrong and it has to be regimented, and that's going to be really problematic, right? So I think we can start with like, can you let go of this vision of like, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be really structural. I'm going to do it like other people do it. I'm going to sit down at a desk for an hour every day and write. Like, that's going to be a way of doing it. Are you willing to sort of let go of that as that being like the only way it gets done?
Yeah, Yeah. I know that I would not be able to do it that way,
Yeah.
even though I know that in myself because it's not working. That's why I'm here talking about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I want to say that like not having any structure is also not having you get your book written, right? So like
Mm,
need some balance. Okay.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you observe yourself naturally doing a good job writing the book,
Mhm.
what do you notice? Like what qualities, what experience, like what's really present when that's happening?
So when I'm doing a good job, is
Yeah,
that what you asked
you're
me?
just producing. Good job trying to say a
Okay.
term, but yeah, you're just producing. You're like, oh, I notice in these moments I'm able to like produce writing.
So if I'm outside,
Okay.
uh, if I've had a day where we've done nice things, um, like I've had fun, like with the girls, or I've done, been pretty relaxed. It tends to be more when I've been relaxed. Um, I can write when I'm inspired, so I might read something, or I might have had a client. I might have even experienced something within my own relationships that make me think, "Whoa, gosh, that there, that's important. That needs to be written about." And I'm sure I'm not the only one that experiences this. It's
Mm.
when I'm quite, you know, I don't know, like there's spaciousness. I would say spaciousness would be the biggest thing. I do need that space, and I need with me, like I have distractions, so I have to be. I don't know if the book Deep Thinking, I think it's called, or Carl somebody is, and he talks about the ability to sit and just do work, like deep thinking. I'm like that. So I won't, when I'm doing it, I'm in it. Like I can really focus. I could spend that hour just sitting, and I'd write and write, and I could do that very easily. But it's almost like I'm lost in my mind. So for the hour, there's, even though the kids, I can hear them in the distance. I'm a mother, so obviously if but
I
it's
got it.
almost like
Yeah.
I'm just, but it's just me and the words, and
Mm.
I'm almost like shifting, and I just write and write, and then I edit. I don't always edit as I'm writing it, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, but I'll come back to it after.
No, that's good.
But that's how I usually write.
And then what's present when you find it impossible to write?
When I say I want to write the book, so when I say I want to write the book, it's like, okay, come on then, Nazma, you're going to put it in your diary, you're going to do it tomorrow, you've got 6 months.
And
uh,
what arises? So as you're saying that, what arises in your being? Like who do you start being about the book?
I start being my 16-year-old self who's trying to get her GCSEs done, hoping that somebody might notice, yay, like she's done well, you know. But they never did. Nobody ever noticed it. Well, not anybody significant. Like my parents didn't. Um, so I'm almost trying to prove something. Like, yes, now you'll do the book. Um, Somebody will read it and say that's beneficial, which I don't think about when I'm doing it the other way at all. To be honest, I don't think about somebody thinking it's beneficial. I think somebody reading it and having one moment of like, whoa,
Mm.
that bit. It doesn't have to necessarily be, and that's the other thing I do. I kind of go from, is it a teaching manual like Gottman's books, to, is it just like Byron Katie's reflective books? Like you've got these two types of.
What kind of book do you want
um
it to be?
I want it to be sort of in between Byron Katie, a little bit of teaching, I think, a little bit of teaching. I'm not, even in my work, I'm not very teacher type, um but more experiential. They're reading something that's reflective. They can say,
Mm.
that, I get that, or I
Mm.
experience that. We all experience loneliness, we all experience belonging or wanting, and
Mm.
that time where you're a bit needy, or all these things. Observing somebody outside of yourself, like you gave the example before of that couple,
Mm.
just those kind of things.
So who you're being when you are able to write the book is you're being spaciousness, you're being inspiration, you're being service. you're being relaxation, and who you're being when you don't feel inspired to write the book is you're being authoritarian, you're being needy, you're being sort of like kind of like wanting to prove yourself.
Mhm.
So what if instead of creating structure to write the book, you created structure so that you could support yourself to be the things on the top?
Yeah. And that's what's scary, because when I try to create structure that's fun, and that, when you opened up on one of the questions and you said again, so I'm going back to your coaching with me, you had asked me a question, you said, why can't things be fun? And that question stayed with me, and it's coming up again now. I don't remember things being fun. I don't even see myself as a fun person. Before you described me as like kind of this like maybe a nice person in the house, but I don't see myself that way. I see myself as authoritarian. Um, yeah, I don't,
What do you
and
get
it's
out of
hard.
seeing yourself as authoritarian?
What do I get from it? I know, like if you're authoritarian, then you get things done, and if you get things done, then you get approval. So it's kind of
But you don't get approval. Some fake version of you gets approval.
yeah. Yeah, I know I don't like that of myself. I hate it, to be honest. I would prefer not to, but almost like if I change into the fun type, I think, oh gosh, there I am again. I've not done their work with them today. Um, I've not like I'll go for a little while being that way, and then honestly, I feel like I have this out of body moment where I'm so angry at myself, and I think, gosh, I've just let 2 weeks go past. Ramadan is a good example of it. In Ramadan, we have like our early morning food and then evening, but we didn't do any structural work. It was such a lovely time. We went from each prayer, and then in between we did certain things. Um, but then I do notice that if I let that happen a bit too long, I think, and I see other people achieving things, I think, oh my gosh, there you are again. Like, you're not going to get stuff done. You're not going to get, yeah, it's the get stuff done bit. Like, I'm not going to achieve anything by being this way. And I don't know how to measure it either. I don't know how to measure what I have actually achieved, except that I spent time with the kids. And I know it sounds like I don't know. And then I feel like, oh, what have I achieved then? Because somebody else could tell me I did this, and this today, and I can't. If I live like that, I can't tell them what those outcomes were, and I almost feel so um, unworthy. Like, oh, you did nothing. You were just laying there reading with them. You did nothing, or they were just playing with your hair. Like, what is that? It, honestly, I feel almost embarrassed. I feel ashamed of being that way. And so I get myself back into authority. I survived that way, to be honest, Toku. When I was a
Yeah.
kid, I survived by following rules. If we
Yeah.
didn't follow rules, we got in a lot of trouble. So,
What did you get done last week?
what did I get done last week?
Mhm.
So last week I took a week off work, and I thought I would just relax, but I didn't. I did the girls' room. I completely revamped the girls' room. Got rid of all the old furniture. We I helped my mum. My mum's elderly, so I had to help her do her cupboard. I had to take her somewhere. I had to go and visit a family member we had on the Sunday. I think I took the girls to the beach. Um, I cleaned I redid the whole kitchen. I actually ended up seeing a client during the week, even though I promised myself I wouldn't, because they needed help. Um, what else? Yeah, my
So I
sister was
just
in
want to
distress, so I helped.
I just want to pause there. So I just want to list. Okay, so you completely redid the girls' room. You helped your mom. You helped out a family member. You took the girls to the beach. You redid the kitchen. You worked with a client.
Mm, I know. But it's
So,
like there's no outcome. Can you see that? I don't know how to measure it. I don't.
so yeah. So help me understand that. What's the outcome that you're trying to find that you're not finding?
I think it is a deeper thing. So, when I was a kid, it didn't matter what we did. It was just you just my dad was physically abusive, and he was just abusive nonstop. And my mum was passive aggressive and abusive. So no matter what I did, it just never got. I mean, I thought it was just an Asian thing, like Asian parents don't hug you and things like that. And I thought, right, that's okay. But it was the level of negativity as well that came with it, the criticism and the contempt. And now, as I've grown up, I don't know I mean, when I was 18, I got a job. And within 3 years, I became level 4 management in this company. But that's a big achievement to do that in 3 years, because people were like in their 50s and I was like a 21-year-old girl. So I must have done pretty well to be in that position at 21. And I remember every time I'd go home and say to my mom, oh, I'm doing this, or she'd just laugh at me and say, oh, you're always doing something. So that's her kind of like, you're always doing something, and she'd kind of laugh it off. And with my dad, he actually said to me, oh, the schools do this to children. They tell you you're doing well because they want to make you feel good. That's their job, to make you feel good. So I got A's, and when I hadn't even, like, I was away for a year during my GCSE, so I came back and had to do my GCSEs in like 6 months that everybody got the 2 years to do. And I still got A's, but at the end of it, there was nothing. It was just, okay, what's next? It was always, what's next? We need to get her married now, and then we need to do this now. And I know that that's happening. So whereas with other members in the family, there's these what I call achievements. So they've got the house, and then their kids have got this grade in their school, and I'm not measuring those things.
Right.
And so
Do you think their way of measuring achievement was fair or right for you?
I don't know. I don't know how they measured. I don't think they even gave me a measurement, which is the hardest thing. I don't know how to measure. I don't know what is, like, the only time I ever got an appraisal of my mum that I can actually remember is I was about 10 years old, and I have 4 younger siblings. She had a C-section, and my dad ended up in hospital. We were living in this house, 8 of us in one bedroom. And my nose, because I'd been taking care of the kids, I'd not been into school, we had social services involved, and my nose was bleeding because I was using these rough tissues, and we didn't have both parents at home, and I was looking after these babies. And my mum actually said, oh, my daughter, she's worked so hard that her nose is bleeding. And I kind of use that and think, gosh, I get myself to a place where I have to be bleeding,
Yeah.
dropping dead before either myself or somebody will recognize that I've done something. And I think that's what I do. I subconsciously create havoc or create things that I have to do to tell myself, whoa, now you've done. I have to be exhausted by the end of it to say, right, now you've. And that's why I think that week I filled it up with so much, because it was like, oh, you must have done something because you feel exhausted. But I don't like it. It's horrible. Like, I don't want to be. I've got bipolar. I don't want to be exhausted by the end of it. I'll trigger it off and end up in hospital again. But that's essentially, I think, what's going on underneath it. The thing that's like keeping me going. But I don't know how to rewrite it.
Is that really true?
I don't know. I try to do it, and then I feel so guilty. And then I think, oh, you're just so rubbish. You just wasted. I tell myself, you've just wasted time. You're so lazy. Put some structure in, and I get my diary out, and I all these things I'm supposed
Yeah, but
to
it
do,
feels, over here it feels a bit impossible because there's no system to measure outcome. Your parents didn't give you one. Your parents' measure of outcome was like to get praise, which they never gave you. So it became this impossible game. And then you just recreated your own impossible game of trying to get praise for an outcome that you have also not defined. It's impossible to feel like you've achieved anything.
Yeah.
And then you kind of complain about feeling like you've never achieved anything, but you've never given yourself a way to experience achieving anything.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
And you achieved a lot. I don't believe that that's true.
I don't know how to, like, I don't know how to celebrate. So, when you talk about the fun earlier, like, I don't know how to celebrate. I don't know where I get to.
Okay, I agree. You don't know how to celebrate because you haven't given yourself a measure. How would you like to measure your life?
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I don't know. So sometimes I'll do something and I'll be like, was that enough? Wasn't enough? Am I supposed to be happy with that? Am I not? Does that make sense? So that's what's happening with the writing as well.
Yeah. Do you have some idea that there is some actual measure that exists separate from what human beings say?
I mean, I get the room clean and I think, oh, it's tidy and neat, but it's not even for me. Like, it's for, I always, at the moment it's clean, I think, oh, if somebody can you see, if somebody, some fake person who's probably never going to come to my house walked in, they'd think, oh, this place is really nice. But I haven't even done that for myself. So if you're asking me, I actually don't know. I don't know what measures to put in to say, you've done this. And people have tried with me. They've said, make a jar and put in all the good things you did. And I just think, I'm not doing that. Like, I did it for a while, and then like.
And why did you not do why did you not do that? Why did you stop doing that?
Because it was just like, I just told, I didn't believe that those things, I felt I couldn't align to it, Toku. I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I would write it down, but I
I
wouldn't.
don't think you want to believe you achieve anything.
Why wouldn't I want to believe that I would achieve
I mean, that's the
anything?
only conclusion I can possibly draw, because it's very easy for us to see what you've achieved for other people. But yet somehow every time you create a system where you can actually experience achievement, you deny it. You break it down. Well, that's not actually it.
Yeah. I don't, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know. I know
Yeah,
you
so
asked
I
me,
don't know is a bit of, I mean, again, this is my assertion. I don't know is a bit of a dodge. I don't know is another way to keep you trapped in, I'm not achieving anything. I think that on some level, you just want to feel like you're not achieving anything. That actually feels normal. And it makes sense, right? Like growing up, you live in an environment where you never felt like you achieved anything. So it would make sense. And that for you was, I heard this definition one time about like belonging and family. It was sort of like when we're growing up, our parents are like God. And God can't be bad, right? God is inherently good. And so if something's wrong, we need to like fit into the shape that God has given us to fit into. So for you growing up, your family like said, okay, the shape for you to fit into is never achieving anything. And so for you to be good, you had to fit into that shape. But you're not a child anymore. And my guess is you've done some amount of therapy on this past. Is that true?
Yeah.
So I mean, and like maybe there's more therapy to be done there, and it's sort of like, okay, like you've done some therapy on it, you kind of understand the causes behind it, you've done some healing work. Some part of you doesn't want to actually feel like it achieved something, and so you get to decide, like, do I want to continue to, maybe you're just like, I'm going to find a way to enjoy never feeling like I achieve anything. Sounds pretty hard to enjoy. Or there's like a shift into, you just have to decide what you're going to be satisfied with and declare it. And then notice. So the reason why this is my guess, the reason why you don't want to declare something you'd be satisfied with is what happens is you get there and you don't feel satisfied.
No, I don't.
But instead of actually looking at that, like, oh, I actually said this is the thing I'd be satisfied with. Why am I not satisfied? What's actually standing in the way of me being satisfied? Instead of doing that, you remake the scale. As if remaking the scale, the new time is going to have you be satisfied. But it's not, because it's not actually, has nothing to do with the scale. The scale is, everyone has their own arbitrary scale. You declare, this is the kind of life I want to live, and you decide, like, am I or am I not satisfied at that level? And then you get there, and then you have to work with, why aren't you satisfied?
You're right. It's hard to decide like what is enough. What is like that satisfactory. Like
It's only
I don't say I
hard.
don't want to know again because
Yeah. Well, it's only hard if you think that there's some right answer.
Okay. Yeah. And I suppose the question is, and my supervisor asked this as well, that what's in it for you? I think it gives me purpose on some level. If I don't have this goal, I can continue to just doing. So in a sense, it's like purpose, but it also is, if I do achieve something, and I was to believe, like my supervisor actually told me that she's not going to do supervision with me because I'm competent, and she said to go and get some therapy with her instead, because she said, your work is fine, it's what's happening after the work that we need to work on. And I think, and she's a therapist as well, so we've swapped. We're going to be I'm taking a month off and doing some work around this, but yeah, I want to be able to say, okay, this is it, this is what will satisfy me. And then I get all of these, like, it's scary. It's
What's
actually really
scary about it?
scary. How do you know? How do you know what is
You don't know.
enough? Then what happens when you get there and that question comes up that you said, which is, why am I not satisfied?
Well, then you get to look at that question. But the mistake is thinking that the answer is in what you declare. Now, I'm not saying you don't. I mean, you have all these guidance, right? So you have the Quran, you've got other people that you admire. So I'm clear for myself. I'm not satisfied with my physical well-being if I walk up a hill and I get like incredibly winded and I want to throw up. That's not. I would not say I declare that that's a satisfactory level of, right. And I have a certain um, so I wear like a 29 waist pant. If I have to go to a 31 waist pant, that's not satisfying to me because on my frame, that's too much weight.
Yeah.
So to me, that's not satisfying. So I have some standard, right? So it's not like there's no, like, I just don't know. But on some level, it's like, it is kind of arbitrary. There are people who weigh a lot more than me are very happy with their bodies. And who am I to say like, oh, that's not appropriate? Like, all right. I mean, our choices do have a particular impact, right? So if I weigh a lot more, I do come at risk to certain health things. But obsessing about your weight can also cause health problems. So it's not that it's totally arbitrary, but I mean, on some level, it is. Like you just have to decide, this is what I'm willing to be satisfied with. And then you declare it, and then you actually get to look at, okay, I declared to be satisfied with this. Now my job is to figure out how to be satisfied with it. Not to remake the scale with some illusion that maybe if I make $10,000 more or have a 27-inch waist, then I'll be satisfied. Because the truth is that you can keep, that's what most people do. Like when I make $1 million, then I'll be satisfied. And of course I make $1 million. When I marry this person, then I'll be satisfied. And then of course I marry the person, and then, and then they're like, oh, right, there's a mixed bag here. So satisfaction, the idea of continuing to move the scale just to find satisfaction is BS. So I don't really buy that you don't know. Like, I think that, I mean, over here, I actually think you're living the life that you want to live. I think you want to spend time with your children having fun. I think you want to like have a bit of freedom and not be so strict with yourself. I think you want to work with your clients. You're a very heart-centered person. But this sort of endless match of always trying to find the point at which you will allow yourself to be satisfied. Like at some point, you just have to draw a line in the sand and say, this is what I'm willing to be satisfied with. And then achieve that or work towards achieving it. And it's not like levels, not like you can't have more than level of satisfaction, right? It's not like I couldn't be in better shape than that. But you say, this is my level of satisfaction. And then and there's a specific exercise, which I'll send you, called the conditions of satisfaction. And you literally make a list of like 1 to 27 things in a particular area that are the conditions for you to be satisfied. Then you work towards that level and you rate yourself. And you want to get somewhere between most people find they experience satisfaction above 80% in a particular area. So you kind of rate everything on a scale of 1 to 10, or there's different ways of doing it. But anyway, you rate these things, then you get to a particular level and you're like, okay, I'm at 80%. This is close enough. I should be satisfied. So if I'm not satisfied, that means I need to do the internal work to get to a place of satisfaction. But yeah, you just got to pick.
Yeah. And I have made choices on some areas that people didn't approve of, but I did it anyway. Like the homeschooling, like traveling, like moving out of the area that I was living in. I've done a lot of things that I've just thought, guaranteed they're going to say, well, this is unconventional and, not approved of. But I've done it. And it hasn't been all death and at the end of it, I've actually enjoyed it. Travel's been some of my favorite memories. Homeschooling was some of my favorite memories with them. They're at school now. Maisha wanted to go to school, so I let her make that choice. But it is just. I think you're right. There's another layer of that. When you said that choice, making that choice for myself and not having any voice that says one way or another. And I think that is quite a it's freeing, but it's also very scary as well, because then it's that you have to trust yourself. You have to say, somehow my choices are going to lead to something. And you mentioned the Quran earlier, and it's true. God, if you look at Islam, it actually doesn't go against me, it actually goes for me, because Allah looks at effort and not results. And you do something sincerely and you leave it to God for the results. You do it because it's you. And I'm that kind of person. I will do something because it's good to do, and then I go to results, and it takes me really away from, even when I'm helping people, I don't think about the money or anything. I just think, gosh, there's a couple here who, if I was to help them in some way, they would be less hurt, there would be more love, their families would benefit from that, society would benefit from that. There's just so much goodness in helping families. And if I could use that formula on a more micro level, when you talked earlier about setting goals, I think that way would work better for me, because it's not as like, if you got an A star in this, because I don't think I work you gave me the exercise before about the book and which way I show up. I don't think it makes me really contracted. Actually, it makes me quite angry as well. Like, oh, you've not done this today. You've not, I get really annoyed. But if I was to do it from, the measurement was, what good can I do today? And then the aspect of the love of God, which is, your body has a right over you, your spouse has a right over you, your children have a right over you, the environment has a right over you. And if I use that balance, then I would sleep because I'm tired, and I would, not think, oh, I'm not spending enough time on the book because I'm spending time with the children. I would just be able to balance it in the way that, if everybody has a right, then I've got my children, I've got this, I've just give them their rights. It's a good thing to do. It's not like a measurement thing.
Yeah.
I think I could work with that structure a lot better than when I go into my diary and 10 o'clock this and 2 o'clock that.
So you've listed a few conditions of satisfaction for maybe writing a book that I'm going to help you start your list. So the first of all is just sincerity. Am I engaging in the process of writing this book with sincerity? Is the way I'm writing this book, is it aligned with my religious beliefs, aligned with God and what's taught in the Quran? Am I writing in a way that's focusing on helping people rather than getting approval? And am I spending time writing outside? Because that seems to you like you enjoy writing the book more. So what might be some other things that would have you be, if you were writing the book in this way, that would have you be satisfied with how you're writing the book?
I think that, knowing that there's a hadith, which is a saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which states that, if we go towards doing something that's good and we make a big intention towards it, and should we not be able to complete that, but we were sincere in it, we would actually get the full reward. So if I've said I'm writing this book for 1,000 people to benefit from in some way, and I sincerely want that, and I ask that of God, and I write it with my heart, and should I not be able to complete that because I fell ill, or God forbid I even died, then it would be written that I actually got that reward, because it's about energy. We've given that out into the world, and and it's rewarded through energy, and that would be received not in monetary payment, but in the goodness of like how I feel when I've done that, in even the few pieces that were written, in how I showed up with my children. It would be rewarded in other ways that we might not measure as money or the materialistic world. I think that would be something for me to remind myself often of. That reward is there, and I'm doing it for that. It keeps you also present as well in the moment, which is really important to me. Otherwise, I'm either in the future or the past. But doing something now is,
So focused on this intention rather than on the completion. So focusing more on the intention you're bringing to the completion. Okay. What else would have you be satisfied with writing the book?
I think I would need a practical check-in. So at the end of a period of 4 weeks, just to say, okay, let's look back at how much I've written now.
Okay.
I think that would be also a good thing, because
So I take time to reflect on what I've gotten done.
Yeah, but not on a judgment like, oh, is that all I've got done? So I have to make sure that I don't go back to that,
Well, and
loop.
that's probably going to show up again because you're a human being and that stuff's going to come
Yeah.
up, right? So, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you take time to regularly reflect on what's gotten done. What else? Anything else?
Um, in satisfaction,
Yeah. What would have you be
uh,
satisfied with the process of writing the book?
um, that it was good quality, that I did the research, you know, it was well written. Like, I wouldn't want to just write something half-hearted, just for the sake of it being written. I have some pride in kind of the grammar and make sure it's written properly, and if I've quoted anything, any facts or figures, that they're correctly attributed to the person who's I've got that from. Just in making sure that that ethical side of things is there. Um,
Okay. So
that's
I feel
important
like
to
I'm
me.
doing my best writing and then I've done any attributions that are
Yeah.
there.
Mm.
Anything else you would need to feel like you're satisfied with the process of writing the book?
I'd like a part of it when I'm designing the cover and the layout. I enjoy creativity, and I'd like to be able to experience that part, but not too far ahead. So I'm avoiding writing. I tend to go to that side. I like painting and creativity, and so I don't want to jump to that too soon. But I want it to be almost like a reward. So when the book is done, and I feel like, I want it to almost be like this, like a gift is wrapped at the end, and you put the pretty paper on, and you present
Yeah.
it nicely. I want it to be that that's a reward in itself. That once I've done that, I'm going to get to design. I'm going to get to look at the colors and the layout of the book and things like that. And that would give me satisfaction. I think it'd be a really nice way to finish,
Yeah.
to complete. But I try to do that at the beginning. I try to put that in to avoid the writing.
So yeah, and there's a way of looking at this situation where there's one way of looking at this is there's a problem that needs to get fixed. So I'm doing this instead of that. It's a problem to get fixed. And instead, using a conditional satisfaction list, you can look at what happened, what's missing, and what's next. So I'm going to send you this list.
Okay.
The idea is that maybe like once a week or once a month, whenever you do the check-in, I mean, this is the part you put in your diary. You go through and you might want to increase this list. You go through and then you rate. So when it comes to writing the book, would you give yourself that right now you're writing the book very sincerely, you're not writing it sincerely at all, or it's somewhere in the middle?
Sincerely.
Okay, great.
Mm.
Right now, does the book feel like it's aligned with your religious beliefs?
Not with the part that, whatever good I'm doing is being rewarded and not looking at the outcome. I'd say I'm in the middle on that.
Okay.
Mm.
And then, all right, so that's in the middle as well. And then focus on helping others. How are you doing with that? You do that every time you write, you're never focused on others. It's sort of half and half.
I think it's always focused on others, but not writing so that they get their approval, but more this is beneficial. So yeah,
Okay. Spending time writing outside.
not done much of that because of the British weather.
Damn British
But yeah,
weather. Okay.
yeah.
Um, feeling like you're doing your best writing.
When I write, then yes.
Okay, great.
But
That's all that matters. So yeah, um, taking time to reflect on what you've gotten done.
no, I
Okay,
don't do that at all.
great. And then making sure you do attributions when you quote other people's work.
Yeah, I've been making sure I keep a list of everybody I've quoted.
Great.
Yeah,
And then spend time on the cover of visuals.
I've been doing that a lot,
Okay.
but I need to come off that actually because it needs to be at the end.
Well, so again, we're going to make this list of conditions of satisfaction. Then we're going to look how it goes. So, okay, so we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's call it 10. So you're about 70% level of satisfaction on how you're writing your book. So to get to above 90 or above 80, which is sort of the 80 to 90, or 90 above is really the best, but like to get to above 90, then you would need to improve, reflecting regularly, focusing on your intention, spending more time writing outside. Any of those areas would have you increase your level of satisfaction on writing a book.
Mm.
But each one of these things is just one factor in your level of satisfaction. that's sort of the point, is we tend to get fixated on one thing. So, and maybe, maybe your 10th thing is sort of like writing consistently, however you helpful if you define what it is. I want to write every day. I want to write 3 times a week. Right. That might be another area where you're like, oh, I'm not really doing that. But it's just one thing on the level of satisfaction. You're like, oh, actually in these other areas, I'm doing what I would say is satisfactory. But if I improved my writing consistently, then I would get to above 80%. So it gives you a way to measure, but you're not just using the one area that you're failing in or that you're struggling in as the way to measure.
Yeah.
Do you see how that works?
Yeah, it does.
And you see how even if you like wrote consistently but let go of everything else, it also wouldn't be very satisfying?
Yeah, it would. It'd be horrible.
Yeah. So that's part of this, like, and then I want to be really clear, like this list is completely arbitrary. You are the one deciding that these are the things that will have you be satisfied or not. Nobody else. Nobody else gets to decide. You with, guidance from God. You've had these beautiful teachings that allow you to sort of declare what that is, but like you are the one deciding that for yourself, because you're the only one that really can decide what will have you be satisfied or not, right? With some guidance. And so I guess my final question is, if you get to 90% of this list, are you willing to be satisfied with how you write your book?
From just as you were describing that, and it's been broken down now, although it's not the types of goals that I was using, like sitting down so many times, it feels so much better because I can see it. And should I ask myself, like, what have you done? I can say, well, this is the way that I want to work. And, kind of that standard for yourself. I think that's what I didn't want to let go of. I didn't have a standard at the beginning of this. I don't think I did. And although I kept saying, I don't know.
You did actually have a standard, you just hadn't declared it. I mean, these things you started talking about, they came quite easily, because I do think that you have this, but there's a reluctance. And I think this goes back to the other thing we talked about before, which is I think you have a reluctance to elucidate what your standard is, because if you don't elucidate it, you can't achieve it. And it actually feels more comfortable for you to not achieve, to always be in the state of constant questioning of whether or not you're achieved. That actually feels more comfortable to you than actually saying, I declared this and I achieved it. That actually will have you feel guilty and uncomfortable, because you are really violating the belonging of your family. You're no longer playing the role that little Nazma played. And she's probably gonna get very upset if you set a goal and achieve it. And then your job is to be loving with her in the same way you're loving with your children.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do like that list.
Yeah. So play with the list. It is two things. One, it's allow a way for you to like decide what is appropriate for you and to work in the way that's appropriate for you. And it is a way to measure. Because I do think having a way to say, okay, I've done it or not is significant. So it's both, but it's not a way to measure that's arbitrary and forces you to be somebody you're not. So start there. And see how it goes, and then stay in touch and let me know. But just check in with the list, once a month, or that's one of your conditions of satisfaction, is checking in on a regular basis. So
I think now that you've got it, I could do it a lot more. I think I put the month in because it was just, I didn't have anything. It was like, a month will give me lots of space. But now that I've got it, I can see it being done weekly, and then preparing myself for the next week, saying, I want to go out on Wednesday or whatever day, and giving myself that space and permission to do those things, to create that, the conditions to be able to be satisfied as well. So I do I can see how that could change. Cool. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you feeling complete for today?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. What can I acknowledge you for?
For achieving quite a lot in my life but not recognizing it. But I have done a lot.
Well, I don't want to acknowledge you for not recognizing it, but
obviously. But achieving.
I'm deeply inspired by you. You've faced incredible difficulty in your life, both growing up, and then I know you've had difficult relationships in the past, and you have such hope for marriage in a way that really inspires me. And you have such hope for yourself, right? And there's a way in which you continue to find joy and fun and relaxation. Often, I know things are a little better for you now, but in the past, things were even more difficult, and you could still found ways to have fun and enjoy your life. and to be inspired and be hopeful. And it's one of the things I really always enjoy about talking with you is that I get very present to what's possible and what could happen in marriage, and just the possibility of living a life that's really incredible, even coming from incredible difficulty.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for being such an inspiration. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. I'm going to talk to the audience for just a minute, and then we'll all log off, and
Okay.
we'll just chat for a minute. Okay, so just hang on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just kind of talking to everybody else now, tricky session. And honestly, at first I wasn't quite sure where to go. Our clients can sometimes present us with unresolvable dilemmas or impossible binds. And the danger is we get into the bind with them and try to fix it. And often when that happens, our only thing is to step outside of it and maybe just assume something that seems sort of absurd, right? So it would be easy for me to assume that Nazma wanted to solve her dilemma, but I got to the point of wow, every time I sort of offer or try to find a way out of this dilemma, it feels like that exit gets cut off. What if she actually wants to stay inside of it? So once we can sort of accept that that might be the premise, we can say, okay, how do we actually, once we accept that premise, how do we step outside of it in a radical way? We start to understand the context the client's in. And so for me, being able to understand the context that Nazma was working inside, which is actually maybe a context of I don't want to get out of this dilemma, then once we have that altitude, we can start to create a way out of it. Now, the conditions of satisfaction tool is just a cool tool for doing that. But that really came out of an understanding that we got to together of oh, this is the context that she's living inside of. And not that it's going to fix everything, but now getting a little bit of altitude in that context, she'll be able to choose more. My hope is she'll be able to choose more freely how to relate to and understand what that context is. So really, again, understanding where the context of the client is and really being clear if you're offered an unresolvable dilemma as a coach. Please go forth and coach well. Thank you for being a coach, and thank you for watching the Coaching Dojo Live. And I'm looking for more clients. So if you want to come on and coach with me, let me know and we'll have you sign up. Thank you again, Nazma. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're off the live stream now.
Okay. Thank you. Honestly, I really appreciate that.